Hey everybody, this is bypassing Cloudflare protection for web scraping with Chrome DevTools protocol. So what we will be doing here is we'll be writing a very simple scraper to bypass the Cloudflare protection where it asks you to click a button to kind of verify. And yeah, that's what we'll be doing. A quick disclaimer, any damage done to any websites using this technique is not my problem. This is solely done for education purposes. So what I have here is a command to create or open a web browser running on debug port 9222. These are a couple of additional arguments. No first run, blah blah blah. Doesn't really matter. And yeah, and you've got user data directory so that we're not messing up with the default Chrome profile, right? So we can just copy this command to start an instance. This command works for Linux. If you're on Mac or Windows, only this part will be different. So if you're on Windows, you might want to say capital Google/Chrome or whatever that's on your system. The way you kind of check that is you go to here and you say Chrome version, and you can find the executable path here, right? So I've got opt Chrome/Google Chrome. I've got Google Chrome on my path, so I just need to type in Google Chrome. So cool. So this is the documentation for Chrome DevTools protocol. So what this says is you can interact with the browser by sending in WebSocket messages to your DevTools, and DevTools will kind of do those changes to your browser. So if you want to actually see those, you can open the inspect here, go to inspect, and if you go to the settings and you go to experiments, you can search for protocol monitor. You want to enable that, and if you reload your DevTools, and you could just go to the settings here, or it just shows up here. For me, it's right in the bottom. I've got protocol monitor. So every time you send or you do something on your browser, so if I say google.com, it just sends in the new messages, like that starts loading up. So it's basically a request will be sent, blah 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 blah, and that's what we'll be using to kind of drive our browser. So we'll just open my terminal, and I have an empty directory here. I'll just create a virtual env first. So virtual env space env source env/bin/activate. If you're on Windows or Mac, it might be slightly different. So I've got another terminal here. I'll just open up. So I will say app.py to call my script, and this is what I'll do. I need to install a couple of libraries because we're driving our browser with WebSockets. We'll say pip install WebSockets, which is the Python package. Let me just show that. So it's a WebSockets Python lib. You could just find this here, and you can just install that. And we'll just copy that. We need to send in HTTP requests, right? Or no, right? We'll just remove that. How about we just do that, right? We'll say that pip install request, so we can send HTTP requests also, and we have that. So let's start with that. So we'll say, okay, what's happening? Okay, so we've got import. We need to, kind of parse JSON. So we'll have that import requests. We need to put in delay between our requests. So I'll say from time import sleep, and we need to import the WebSocket kind of thingy. So go WebSocket async IDOT server. We need a client. There you go. Right, we'll just have that. And what else? Okay, let me just activate that so it knows there are these packages. Cool. Unable to import. What's the problem? Client sync.client. We'll see. Maybe it's my editor, or maybe it's my linter, right? So we'll just have a main function. What does it do? It needs to open a browser instance, right? So I'm gonna say browser instance equals, let's say, create browser, right? And we will have a def create browser. We'll just do pass for now. the moment we have a create browser, we need to fetch the browser WebSocket URL. So I'm going to say WebSocket endpoint equals get browser endpoint, right? Or let's say get WS endpoint. Cool. And we will pass in the browser instance. Do we need to do that? Let's just not pass now. And we will do this. Let me just copy that. And we have that there. And to drive our scraper, we need to say, let's say def execute. And we'll do this, right? And we need to call, let's say execute. Cool. Now, what do we need to do? We need to create or start the browser. So we'll do that using the subprocess module. So I'm going to say import subprocess. And we need to do this with, let's say, browser instance equals subprocess.popen. And we will pass in this from my website. I'll be putting this link in the description. So you can just copy this, right? And say that, right? And there you go. So now you have the code to start the browser, run the Chrome DevTools protocol on port 9222. You can just use any other port, that's not a problem. These are a couple of arguments that, kind of turns off the default, browser check and no first run. It doesn't really matter. And there you go. So we'll just return the browser instance. Cool. And let's see what we can do. So we have that browser instance. Okay, how about we just see if the browser is being created. So if I do python3 app.py, okay, we need to call main function, call main, and I'll say python3 app.py. Let me see if that's created. There you go, right? I have this created here. And so that's working, right? Let's just turn this off. And let's come back and we need to get the browser instance URL, right? So how do we do that? The way we will just run that again to see that it's a python3 app.py. We have a browser instance, should be somewhere here. There you go. What I'll do is navigate to localhost port 92 json/list. This is available in the docs. So if you go to Chrome DevTools protocol, you will be able to find that somewhere here. So go the endpoint, the exposed and WebSocket URL, and let's see it. There you go. So I've got get/json or /json/list, and we need the page WebSocket URL. So if you look at this is a new tab, title, and we kind of need this WebSocket URL, correct? So that's what we'll do now. I'll go to my code. And so what I'll do is I will send a request. So I'm going to say response equal request dot get, send an HTTP request to localhost port 9222 slash json/list. Verify equals false, timeout equals 10. Not really necessary. We'll just put that and say response JSON equals response.json. And we will parse that. So we have a list here, correct? We need to find the item with the title of new tab. So we'll say for item in response JSON, which is basically for item in the response for each object in the JSON list. I get the item. I'm going to say title equals item.get title. If title equals new tab, what I'll do, I need this key here, right? Cool. Equals item.get. I'll just grab this here. Cool. And I'll just return the WebSocket debugging URL. Remove the pass statement there. And that's all we need, right? So we'll just return empty string just in case if nothing happens. So we have the WebSocket endpoint here. We will print that out, right? Let's see if that works. We'll just close that. Python3 app.py. We should be able to see the browser instance here. Okay, I just need to close that and run that again. Make sure we don't have any instances running, and we'll create that. Okay, so we have a browser instance here, and I think there was an issue closing the browsers. We'll just close all of that. Python 3 app.py. Oh, max errors. Okay, so we need to make sure the browser starts. We give enough time before we send a request. So we'll just put a sleep in there. I'm going to sleep of 10 seconds. I'll just say 5 seconds, right? I'll just do that. Right, we have the browser here. So we have the WebSocket endpoint here. So let's assume that's the WebSocket DevTools or get page endpoint. So that's working, right? What else do we need to do? So now we need to drive the browser, correct? Or we need to open a page and do some steps. The way I'm going to do is in a very funny way. So if you go to this website, so we have these steps, correct? So the first step, what this does is sends a Chrome DevTools protocol message asking the browser to set the browser size. We open this page called scrapingcourse.com. This is a website that lets you, there's a lot of challenges for you to kind of practice. And we navigate to this page. We press on the mouse dispatch event. We release our mouse. We get the DOM page or the HTML page, right? This is what we're doing. Now, the way what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file called JSON file. So it says steps.json. I will copy this, right? And just go ahead and copy that. And let's just close that. What I'll do is inside my execute method, I will take in the WebSocket endpoint, right? I'll say WS URL, right? And I will pass this here. I'll just stop printing that and I will load the JSON file. So I've got JSON module loaded. I'm going to say with open of steps.json. That's the name of the file. And read mode as f data. I'll just say steps equals json.load of f. And we'll remove that. We'll say is for item in, or let's say for step in steps, for each step in our JSON file, we will go ahead and send that WebSocket message. So what I'm going to do is I'll create a WebSocket endpoint, right? So I'm going to have WebSockets. I'll just find this line. And this is essentially what we're doing. Just copy that, go in here and say, instead of saying this endpoint, what we need is our WebSocket endpoint. So I'm going to say WS URL as, let's say WS, right? Just make it short, WS, and say WebSocket ws.send. And we need to convert our Python dictionary object, which is for each step, into a, so I'm going to say WS, therefore item for step in steps, right? We'll say we need to send a message. What's the problem here? Okay, we got that. Right, this should fix that. Right, and WebSocket send, we need to send the JSON dot step in steps, JSON dot dumps, right? We're sending in a string message of the step, and we will wait for a couple seconds. We're going to sleep of 10 seconds so that we make sure everything's going fine. And that's essentially all we need to do, correct? So I've got this. Okay, so this does that. Cool. What's the problem here? Does not match previous unintended. Okay, why is my editor messing up so much? Right, so got this. Cool. Main. Okay, I don't need this. Okay, there you go. And I don't need this. I don't need this. Okay, so that's fixed. So we make sure our browser opens up, we sleep for 5 seconds, and then we get the WebSocket endpoint and we get run the execute function. We open the JSON file, we execute our each step in that file. We sleep for 10 seconds and just send the next step, right? So make sure no other instances running. I'm gonna say Python 3 app.py. We'll just pull that up. Let's see if that's working. Okay, there you go. So that loads the first step, which is good navigating to the page, and it will load the next step in 10 seconds. So that's the delay we give. So that's like a fair enough amount of time. So we've got the Cloudflare challenge here. So the next step is to kind of click that button. So if you see that red indicator is trying to click that button, and it will remove the button click in 10 seconds again, kind of mimicking a user activity. There you go, verification successful, and we've passed the Cloudflare challenge. Now, this is one way of doing it. There are multiple ways of kind of figuring out, like solving the scraper, solving the Cloudflare challenge. And this is kind of very funny way of web scraping, right? This is very different way of web scraping. Normally, people would just send HTTP requests or use a browser automation tool, but this is what actually happens underneath the scraper, right? If you look at Puppeteer or Playwright, this is essentially what happens underneath. It sends these messages, sends back and forth and kind of tracks the messages sent from the browser. So thank you for watching.